on the Richter scale. That's led to the tsunami that's now troubled Japan and now spreading across the Pacific Ocean.
And those pictures there that are currently on the screen, just giving you a glimpse of just the size of the wall of water that has hit Japan and now threatens elsewhere. Palav Ghosh for now, thanks very much. Thank you.
Well, let's speak now to our World Affairs correspondent Humphrey Hawksley, who's been following the very many developments after this earthquake struck off the northeast coast of Japan at 2:45 local time. And as we've been seeing, Humphrey, the scale of the damage in the northeast off Sendai is just remarkable, just extraordinary to see.
It's totally horrifying, and thinking this is the middle of the afternoon without warning. They might have been prepared for earthquakes without warning, and we've seen the sheer force of water, several different pictures, quite difficult to piece together. But the one particularly that has struck me is, I think it's a high street in Sendai itself, where you see that the waves have just come in, they've dumped everything in its path and withdrawn because it's dry at the moment. The road itself is dry. So this was something that happened in a minute or two, and complete and utter devastation all around.
It's hard to make sense of some of the pictures that you're seeing because everything is so mangled that you can't quite tell what you're looking at.
Well, you see snatches of them. At Sendai Airport, you see the water almost as high as the air bridge. So imagine a jumbo jet sitting against that. We've seen houses that have literally been swept up and carried along. Ships, the same thing, banged against a city wall. There was a small freighter that happened to, and then the cars and the trees and what you see almost is something out of a tourist brochure, a surf wave gradually coming forward, and then it hits the land, and then it becomes the black sludge of the agricultural land moving more and more slowly, but that doesn't take away the force of the things it destroys.
And we've seen pictures as well, as you're mentioning agricultural land. It looks like tinder, like matchsticks, of buildings that have been completely demolished, mixed with cars and boats, and then there are fires on top of some of the debris making their way across this farmland.
Well, the fires would come from probably the gas in people's houses that go up. But I mean, what you've got to think, Maxine, on all of this is that we have a death toll now that's gradually risen throughout the hours. I think it's around 40 now. But amongst all this, there are people that we know are buried in these landslides that are calling for help in their houses, and all the sort of tragedy that is likely to unfold from it.
The figure of the number of people missing at the moment very much up in the air. Humphrey, for the moment, thank you very much indeed.
Well, there we continue to see the pictures of the tsunami itself that has hit Japan since that earthquake, the earthquake that struck at 2:46 in the middle of the afternoon. As Humphrey was taking us through, the current death toll is now at 44, a magnitude of 8.9, this earthquake. And as we were telling you a little earlier, one of the more recent developments, a boat carrying 100 people, that is reported as missing. No developments, no word as to where that is. So those are the latest pictures coming to us from Japan on this BBC News special. Well, if you are just joining us for this BBC News special, we're bringing you the very latest on that massive earthquake that's hit the northeast coast of Japan, measuring 8.9 and triggering a 10-metre high tsunami.
Well, the wall of water has destroyed everything in its path, tearing down buildings, sending ships crashing into the shore and swamping large areas of farmland.
Well, at least 44 people have been killed, and there are reports of that ship carrying 100 people having been swept away.
It's one of the largest earthquakes to hit Japan for more than a century and has caused widespread damage to homes and offices across Tokyo.
Well, as you can see, fires rage out of control along the coast, including one at an oil refinery, as the country issues a state of emergency. The quake caused also a giant whirlpool off the east coast of Japan. The tsunami warning has now been widened to cover the Pacific basin.
Well, the earthquake's epicenter lies 250 miles north of Tokyo. It triggered a 10-metre tsunami that swept inland at the port of Sendai.
Mass evacuations have taken place in Japan itself, as well as in countries that lie on the Pacific coast. Tsunami alerts have been triggered in Australia, Russia, Mexico, Hawaii and Peru. New Zealand, in the last hour, have downgraded their tsunami threat.
The tsunami triggered by the earthquake sweeping towards land from the epicenter, about to wreak havoc along the coastline. It's now being described as the biggest earthquake ever to hit Japan. In its destructive path, cars, boats, even buildings, debris of all kinds. Here a boat in a harbour finds itself tossed about in a whirlpool created by the earthquake. The moment the earthquake struck, 2:46 in the afternoon, local time in Japan. This is a local government office in the city of Sendai. And this, the offices of Japan's public broadcaster in the same city. There were several powerful aftershocks within the hour. In a country all too used to earthquakes, the shock at the magnitude of this one all too obvious as people spilt out onto the streets of Japan's cities and tried to comfort one another. An oil refinery burns out of control just outside the capital. Other refineries have been shut down. Countless fires have been triggered by the earthquake. As yet, no one's even begun to assess the economic cost of the disaster.